Well, it's February and it's a typically kind of gloomy, rainy day today. So, what a good occasion to do tasty golden potatoes in your toaster oven. Of course, the recipe is from my cookbook. Pop it in the toaster oven. And I fixed this probably 5 or 6 times. And it's always a success with guests. And it's definitely a success for me too, because it's one of those recipes that I like where you don't really have a lot of fat in the contents, but the flavor is so wonderful that you really don't care. It's just really good. And so this is what I wrote about this recipe, which is called Tasty Golden Potatoes. I said you can use any kind of potatoes. The carrots will make them golden and lend a pleasant sweetness that contrasts with the onion and others. And there's a great shortcut to this recipe. If you have a food processor, you can shred the potatoes and carrots and onion in just a few minutes. If you don't, though, you can use a grater. And actually, that's what I did. I used a grater, and it didn't take really much longer. So basically, you just have a few ingredients with this recipe, and then you have your seasoning. And then, of course, you put it in your pan and pop it in the toaster oven. And in probably 30 minutes or so, it is done, and done beautifully. So I'm going to show you what the ingredients are that you'll need, but first I'm going to preheat my toaster oven to 400 degrees. Here's what you're going to need for the tasty golden potatoes recipe. A mixing bowl about this size and a mixing spoon. You can use an 8x8 or 9x9 baking pan. In this case, I have just a little casserole dish that I'm going to be using, which you could use too. It's about a 1. And so here we have 2 cups of shredded potato. That's of course a peeled potato that has been shredded either in a food processor or by being grated with a grater. Here are 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. In this case I'm using olive oil, which I really like. I like the cold press olive oil. I think it's healthier and has a lovely flavor. And then here is 1/4 cup of shredded onion. And I have over here 1/2 cup of shredded carrot. So all of these ingredients are going to go into the bowl, and then I'll be adding the spices. There's the shredded carrot. Here's the 2 cups of shredded potatoes. And a 1/2 cup of, oh, that's such a pretty color on a gloomy day, isn't it? And then, of course, the vegetable oil, so 3 tablespoons. Okay, the shredded mixture, I'm going to be adding a teaspoon of cumin. That's powdered cumin. A teaspoon of rosemary, dried rosemary, and in this case actually I'm using a mix that I made from my garden, oregano and basil mix. And then I'm putting in a pinch of dried rosemary from my garden. And then a teaspoon of salt, I'm saying. Now you can use less than that. I think in this case I'm probably going to use 3/4 of a teaspoon. And if you have a problem with salt, you add what you want to add. And then some freshly ground pepper. And then I'm just going to mix this up. It's beautiful with the green spices, the orange carrot, potatoes and onions. The mixture is going to go into this casserole dish. I'm covering this mixture with aluminum foil. Okay, so this potato mixture is going to go in to the toaster oven, which is up to temperature at 400. I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to check to make sure that everything is cooked and tender. Well, it was 30 minutes for the potatoes, and they are tender and cooked perfectly. They're supposed to go in again for another 8 minutes to be brown, but I think I'm going to be a little inspired here and sprinkle the top with some ground almonds, which I just happen to have in the refrigerator. And you might want to consider this, if you feel so inspired, to add maybe a little cheese on top. In this case, it's my favorite thing in the whole world, shredded Asiago cheese. And I'm thinking that would be, with the almonds, a really lovely topping. So back they go into the toaster oven for 8 minutes uncovered. And then I'm going to set the timer for 8 minutes and check to see if everything is browned and the topping is done. So you can see this was 8 minutes, and the almonds are very nicely toasted, and the Asiago cheese is melted. It's beautiful. Would this be a nice addition to a meal? Yes, and if you're a vegetarian, my gosh, it could be a meal in itself. It smells absolutely wonderful. I really am going to have to do a little taste test on this. Oh boy. You thought potatoes were boring. This will alter your whole idea about potatoes. The texture is different. It's very soft. And the onions and the carrots are just a really nice meld. Takes the potatoes into a whole different area. Now, of course, the Asiago and the almonds on the top, I'm very fond of. Maybe you'd like to try breadcrumbs. It wouldn't hurt if you dotted the top with butter or margarine. Always put in the herbs and seasonings of your preference. I like the cumin. I like my oregano basil mixture from my garden, plus the rosemary. And this is very interesting. This is really a very, it harkens back to hash browns in a way, but it's a very sophisticated take on a hash brown type potato. I would definitely give this a try. Pop it in the toaster oven cookbook. Can't go wrong. This is delicious.